You see, one of the most overlooked and shocking truths about the woman's body is this: her body remembers what her mind tries to forget. And I don't say that as poetry. I say that as psychological fact. Emotional experiences, especially traumatic or intimate ones, aren't just stored in her memory, they're stored in her body. Let that sink in. We often think of memory as something locked in the brain, filed away like folders in a cabinet. But for women, particularly, memory lives in the muscles, the nervous system, the skin. Her body becomes a silent witness to every heartbreak, every betrayal, every touch, both gentle and violent, a hug that didn't feel safe, a conversation that left her feeling unseen, a night where she said yes but meant no. Her body remembers all of it, even if her mind tells her to move on. You may have heard of the term, body keeps the score. This isn't just metaphor. Neurological studies show that the amygdala, the part of the brain responsible for processing emotions like fear and trauma, is directly connected to the autonomic nervous system, the same system that controls involuntary responses like heart rate, tension, and arousal. This means a woman might flinch at your touch, not because of you, but because of what her body has stored from someone else. This is why you'll sometimes notice a woman shutting down, even in a seemingly safe environment. Why she may pull away even when you've done nothing wrong. Her nervous system doesn't care about logic. It responds to patterns, not promises. If her body associates intimacy with pain, with betrayal, or with shame, it will activate protection mode, automatically, instinctively, without warning. Men often make the mistake of taking this personally. She doesn't trust me. She's too guarded. No. What you're seeing is embodied memory. You're not just dealing with who she is now. You're interacting with every experience she's ever had, consciously or not. And this is where psychological maturity comes into play. To truly connect with a woman, you have to understand that physical access does not mean emotional access. You may be in the same room, the same bed even. But if her body hasn't felt safety, if her body hasn't felt reverence, she will withhold something deeper than her words. She will withhold herself. This is why emotional safety isn't a buzzword. It's the gatekeeper. Her body scans you long before her mind rationalizes you. She notices your tone, your eyes, your patience. Are you present? Are you rushed? Are you trying to take or trying to understand? Her nervous system is constantly decoding these signals, deciding, is it safe to let go? Is it safe to be soft here? You can't rush that, and you shouldn't try to. Because when a woman feels truly safe, something extraordinary happens. Her body relaxes, her energy opens, and she begins to rewrite those old memories, not by forgetting them, but by replacing them. Presence becomes the new pattern, and her body starts to trust again. Not just you, but herself. That is the healing power of being seen and respected. Not fixed, owned, just honored. Think about this: when a woman cries during intimacy or becomes deeply quiet, it's not always about the moment itself. Sometimes what you're witnessing is release. Her body finally feeling something it has been denied for years. So permission. Permission to be vulnerable. Permission to be held without expectation. That's not just affection. That's transformation. And yet so many men bypass this entirely. They focus on the physical without understanding the psychological. They mistake openness for readiness. They assume presence equals availability. A woman's body is like a vault, guarded not by walls, but by memory. And the key is not charm, not confidence, not even romance. It's emotional attunement. So ask yourself, are you paying attention to what her body is really saying? Not what you want it to say, but what it actually feels. Is she tense? Is she breathing? Is her voice soft or strained? Is she leaning in, or just enduring? These cues will tell you more about her truth than her words ever could. And if you ignore them, you may miss the very connection you're chasing. Because here's the reality: a woman's body is intelligent. It's not just something to admire or desire. It's something to respect. And once you understand how deeply her body stores, reacts, and remembers, you'll start to see that connection isn't about access. It's about alignment. So don't just touch her. Don't just talk to her. Tune in. Because if you can make her body feel safe, if you can show her nervous system that it's okay to trust again, you won't just win her affection. You'll unlock her soul. And that is what most men never learn. Let's get something straight. Hormones aren't just about mood swings, periods, or fertility, the surface level understanding most people, especially men, have. But the truth is far more layered, far more psychological. A woman's hormones don't just influence how she feels. They influence how she connects, how she loves, and how she decides whether you're someone worth letting in or someone to shut out. Men often imagine hormones as this biological background noise, something that comes and goes, something she has to deal with. But what if I told you that her hormonal rhythms are part of a deeper psychological symphony, one that shapes her values, her desires, and even the way she experiences truth? Take oxytocin, for instance, often called the love hormone. It's released during moments of trust, closeness, and emotional bonding. It floods our system during affectionate touch, during deep conversation, during sex. But only if she feels emotionally safe. That's the key. Without emotional safety, oxytocin doesn't do what it's supposed to do. Her body might go through the motions, but the emotional connection won't click. That's why sometimes, even after a man does everything right, physically, she still feels distant. Because chemistry isn't just about bodies, it's about trust. There's estrogen, responsible for emotional awareness, verbal fluency, even heightened intuition. It sharpens her ability to read between the lines, to feel what's unsaid, to notice the subtle changes in tone, energy, or intention. This is why women often pick up on emotional cues that men overlook. They're not overthinking, they're biologically tuned to perceive complexity. Their hormones push them to seek depth and meaning. And then we have testosterone. Yes, women have it too. In fact, around the time of ovulation, a woman's testosterone levels rise, subtly increasing her confidence, her assertiveness, even her sexual desire. And this is where most men get it wrong. That doesn't mean she's automatically available. It means she feels more embodied, more radiant, more present in her feminine power. But again, if the psychological and emotional climate around her isn't safe or aligned, physical energy doesn't translate into intimacy. It remains dormant, self-contained, withheld. Here's the point that most men never fully grasp it. A woman's hormonal cycle doesn't just affect her body. It shapes her worldview. It shifts the lens through which she experiences reality. Her needs, her cravings, her moods aren't signs of instability. They're expressions of biological intelligence, constantly adjusting to internal and external conditions. Let me give you an example. In the first half of her cycle, called the follicular phase, she's often more open, energetic, playful. Her brain is wired for creativity, socializing, and exploration. It's a great time to introduce new ideas, make plans, or just have fun together. In the second half, known as the luteal phase, her body starts preparing for rest, protection, and introspection. She becomes more sensitive, more inward, more focused on emotional truth. If you try to engage with her the same way you did earlier in the month, without adjusting to this shift, she may seem withdrawn or irritable. It's not a problem to be fixed. It's a phase to be understood. Now here's where this gets even deeper. A woman's body isn't just reacting to her inner biology. It's constantly responding to the relational environment. If she's around a man who is emotionally aware and attuned, her body begins to regulate itself differently. Her stress hormones drop. Her oxytocin rises. Her cycle stabilizes. Her nervous system feels seen, and her entire hormonal ecosystem responds. In other words, you impact her biology more than you realize. Your emotional presence, or lack of it, can either harmonize with her or disrupt her. That's how sensitive and intelligent her body is. She doesn't need perfection. She doesn't need dominance. What she needs is attunement. When you understand this, you stop reacting to her moods and start reading the messages behind them. You stop taking it personally when she pulls away, and instead you become curious. What does she need from me right now? Space, reassurance, silence, connection. That shift alone changes the entire dynamic, because now you're no longer a spectator. You've become a conscious participant in her emotional world. And let's be honest, most men never make it to this level. They stay confused, frustrated, or even bitter because they expect linear behavior from a nonlinear being. Once you realize her body is in constant dialogue with her psychology, responding to emotions, safety, hormones, memories, you gain access to a whole new kind of relationship. One that's richer, more connected, more real. So stop trying to predict her. Start trying to understand her. Her hormones aren't chows. They're communication. They're telling a story. And if you're willing to listen, story will not only make sense, it will reveal everything you need to know about how to love her better. Because at the end of the day, the one whose hormones shape her desires isn't unstable. She's in tune. And the man who respects that rhythm, he doesn't just win her body. He earns her trust, her fire, and her peace. Here's a truth will shock most men: a woman's body reacts to words more than it does to touch. And if you don't understand the depth of that reality, you'll keep focusing on physical moves while missing the deeper psychological key to her arousal, her trust, and her connection. For men, physicality is often the entry point to desire, visual cues, touch, action. That's what ignites the flame. But for most women, it begins long before the body is ever involved. It begins in the mind, in the way you speak, in the tone you use, in the intent behind your words. In fact, research has shown that for women, the brain plays a far greater role in sexual response than it does for men. And if you think that's just biology, you're missing the psychological and philosophical weight of that truth. Let's break it down. A woman is a deeply contextual being, means her attraction is built through the environment you create. Emotionally, intellectually, verbally. You could be attractive, well-dressed, physically affectionate. But if your words feel empty, rushed, dismissive, or self-serving, her body won't respond. Her body is not designed to be pressured into connection, it's designed to be invited into safety. This is why tone matters. Not just what you say, but how you say it. Cadence of your voice, the softness or firmness behind your sentences, your ability to pause and be present. All of that communicates more to her than any grand gesture. And when your words lack emotional resonance, her body blocks the signal. You can touch her, but you won't reach her. So many men ask, why isn't she responding? Why is she distant even though I'm being affectionate? What they don't realize is they've skipped a step, the most important step. They haven't spoken to the part of her that controls her body and her mind. You see, the female brain processes language and emotion through the same regions, means words are not neutral, they're not background noise. They are triggers for physical and emotional responses. Compliments that feel genuine, questions that show curiosity, statements that express care. These things physically soften her. They disarm her defenses. They awaken her. But words that are careless, manipulative, her body will shut down before she even realizes it. She may stay polite. She may smile. But inside, her system has already labeled you as unsafe, untrustworthy, or unworthy of deeper access. Not because she's overreacting, because her nervous system is wired to protect her from disconnection. And your words either build that connection or break it. Let's take it even deeper. Every woman is, on some level, listening for emotional alignment. She's listening for truth. She's trying to sense if your words match your energy. If you say, I care, but rush through the conversation. If you say, you're beautiful, but only when you want something. If you say, I understand, but continue to invalidate her experience. Her body hears the contradiction, and it will respond with silence, tension, or withdrawal. This is not manipulation. This is biology plus wisdom. A woman's body has learned, through evolution and through experience, that words are either signs of security or signs of danger. And in a world where women are often objectified, dismissed, or misunderstood, her body is on guard. She's not just listening for compliments. She's listening for consistency, empathy, and presence. That's why foreplay doesn't begin with touch. It begins with conversation. It begins with how you look at her when she speaks, how you respond when she's vulnerable, how you handle disagreement. All of that speaks to her body, and all of that determines whether she will open or shut down. It's also why emotional intelligence is one of the most attractive traits a man can have. When you speak with self-awareness, with depth, with real interest. Not just surface-level charm, you're activating her. Not just her mind, but her entire body. She begins to feel not just seen, but understood. And once that switch flips, her body follows. Because now, her arousal is not based on pressure or expectation. It's based on alignment. Let's be honest. This is not something you can fake. You can't learn a few phrases or memorize a few lines and expect to unlock her. Women are too intuitive for that. They feel the disconnect between practiced words and genuine energy. So don't just improve your language. Elevate your consciousness. Speak from a place of clarity, from a place of truth, from a place of reverence. Because when a woman hears a man speak with intention, integrity, and emotional depth, her body listens. And when her body listens, it softens, it responds, not because you forced it, but because you earned it. So don't underestimate the power of your words. Don't reduce her to physical reactions. Speak like every sentence matters, because to her body, it does. Now let's talk about something that often gets reduced to surface level attraction, but carries far more psychological depth than most people realize. a woman's curves. To the untrained eye, they might seem like just physical features, something to admire or desire. But the truth is, a woman's body, its shape, movement, and structure, is not just about aesthetics. It's about signals, stories, and subconscious codes that reveal far more than you might expect. Curves are not random, are evolutionary messengers. Subtle biological cues developed over thousands of years to communicate fertility, health, nurturing capability, and even emotional stability. That's not where the story ends, because while the male gaze often stops at admiration, a woman's experience within her own body goes much deeper. Her curves don't just reflect her biology. They often reflect her psychology, her relationship with herself, and her history with the world around her. Let's unpack that. The way a woman carries her body says a lot. Is she comfortable in her skin? Is she hiding or revealing? Does she walk with pride or hesitation? These are not just postural habits. They are embodied expressions of her self-image. Her curves may be shaped by genetics, but how she inhabits them is shaped by experience, by how the world has responded to her, by how she's been seen, touched, respected, or shamed. Many men are drawn to curves instinctively, yet fail to understand the energy behind them. The roundness of her hips, the sway of her waist, the softness of her thighs. These features carry more than just allure. They carry the weight of attention, sometimes admiration, sometimes objectification, often both. What you may see as attraction, she may experience as pressure. What you call confidence, she may have had to fight to reclaim from years of criticism, comparison, or unwanted advances. This is why the way you respond to her body matters. Are you appreciating it? Or consuming it? Are you connecting with the woman behind the curves? Or simply reacting to the stimulus? Because I promise you, she can feel the difference. A man who sees her as a whole being, with a body that tells a story and a soul that holds truth, creates space for her to relax, to trust, to express herself without performance. It's important to realize that when a woman feels objectified, her body shuts down, even if she smiles, even if she plays along. Her nervous system knows the difference between being seen as a human and being reduced to an object of pleasure. And that shutdown isn't just emotional, it's physical. Her desire dims, her openness closes, because her curves may attract attention, but they don't guarantee access. Access is reserved for those who bring reverence, not just desire. Now, on the flip side, when a man acknowledges a woman's body with depth, something beautiful happens. When you compliment her not just for how she looks, but for how she moves, how she embodies herself, how she exists in her fullness, you give her back a piece of herself. You remind her that her body isn't something to hide or fear or fight. It's something to own, to celebrate, to live in freely. And this goes even deeper, because a woman's curves so represent a kind of emotional strength. Think about it. In many cultures, the presence of curves has been symbolically tied to nurturing energy, to groundedness, to resilience. Not just sexual availability, but the capacity to hold space, to create life, to withstand pressure and still remain soft. That's something powerful, something that deserves more than lust. It deserves respect. So the next time you see a woman whose body draws your attention, don't just notice the obvious. Ask yourself what kind of relationship she might have with her own body, what messages she's received about it, what she's had to unlearn to walk through the world with her head high. When you start thinking like that, your interaction with her becomes more than physical. It becomes relational, conscious, real. Because ultimately how you treat a woman's body isn't just about her. It's a mirror of your character, your emotional intelligence, your capacity to connect with something beyond your own desire. And when you learn to see her not just through the eyes of attraction, but through the lens of understanding, something shifts. She doesn't just feel admired, she feels safe. She feels free. That is what most men never realize. Her curves are not just attractive. They're alive. They carry her pain, her power, her pride. And if you can respect that, she won't just give you her attention. She might just give you her truth.